Okay, got this working. Got stuff to look at. I got more models to dissect. I don't know if this is gonna be like a series I do now whenever there's new model stuff, but I've gotten about double the amount of models to look through. Granted, this one was a duplicate because I didn't want to. I don't like destroying the original model when I make specific edits. So technically some duplicates, but I mean there are 4 burn traps in the original video, so who cares? I have the costume mimic without the shell. I've got Help Wanted Springtrap. I got Jacko Bonnie from Help Wanted, Curse of Dreadbear. We got all the original boys to look at. I also have some extra images I've dug up. Like, I still have this person who uploaded the model to Sketchfab but did not leave a download link, and I cannot find any download links for official versions of the model or render. But I also have, in my repertoire, Scott's official render of Springtrap to look at. It's interesting how he specifically zooms in on the sort of like structure here, right, that I'm about to get into, but it's also bone. Where do you see a bone? Maybe that means like the bones of the model, because it's like sometimes amateurs and or armatures and models are called bones, but whatever. Uh, Point is, if we return back to original Burntrap, we can very clearly see he has these metal rib thingies sticking out of him with like this metal spine kind of look going on. So he has like this metal rib cage. That's important. We also see he has these cylindrical things that have the little, even smaller cylinders connected to them. And these go all throughout his arms to his hands. We can also see he has this type of ears. This is important because if we fly over to, Spring Bonnie's endoskeleton from the Help Wanted beta, we can see he has these pointed ribcage points, and he also has these simple little rectangular ears. Now we fly over to Help Wanted Springtrap, who I just pointed out is in fact Scott Vision accurate. This is how he depicts Springtrap, and this is how he's represented in Help Wanted 2. Not Help Wanted 2 the game, but how he's represented also in Help Wanted. And we can very much see he has the metal like ribcage prong thingies and the arm coils from Burntrap. This is going to be important as we get into it, but you can see that Burntrap has a lot in common with Springtrap and Spring Bonnie. He has the same arms entirely up to this point about on each. And then he has the entire ribcage piece, the entire torso, just ripped straight from it. And he also has the same ears. More or less, you can see he had... Hold on. You can see Springtrap has those ears. I didn't really remember to take those off, but I could do it. You can see a process of how I do this. It's not very elegant. Wow. And I just do that while I clean it away. And I try not to delete what I'm looking for, you know. Sometimes I take over a little bit too much. But you can see he does have the same general ear. Let me get out of whatever. You can see he has the same general ear design going on. But this is a much more primitive beta design and model, obviously. It's also interesting that I don't have renders of this really, but the earlier versions of Help Wanted had Glitchtrap. What we think of as Glitchtrap now, at least, was Springtrap's model and Spring Bonnie's model at various points of development, which is something that's really interesting. What makes me there is so much William Afton Spring Bonnie imagery with Burntrap and Springtrap and Glitchtrap all together. I'm like, you redesign the entire you take the entire torso out of this classic character, and you rip out his like most of his arms to put into this supposedly different, unique new character, and you're supposed to expect us to not be like, oh, it's the same guy, you know, like who's in a rabbit suit and motif, and it's just like, and his purple glowing eyes, which is a very like, which is the same as Glitchtrap, which is also, well, William never had purple glowing eyes. He's associated with purple, uh, which further raises the question: are you telling me this guy wasn't meant to be active at some point? Uh, and I wasn't even on that team until I really started looking at these models. I'm looking at them. I'm just like, that's literally the same thing as here. It's just there. It's broken. It's more messed up and damaged. But like the rib cage is there. These arm coils are there. Now, why I have Jacobani is because there are actually two different Nightmare Endos. And one of them isn't in Help Wanted as a unique Endo. And what I mean by that is, Nightmare Endo is literally Nightmare / Nightmare Fredbear's Endo. He has these sharp, almost conical, like, slightly curved Freddy Krueger, or not Freddy Krueger, very, like, spike claws. It's kind of hard to explain unless you're looking at them. But they're curved, and they're a lot longer, and they don't have these rings on them. The normal Nightmare Endos, especially the ones seen in Jacko Bonnie, Nightmare Bonnie, I think Nightmare and Jacko Chica, and potentially Fredbear, normal Freddy and normal Nightmare Foxy. They don't have Nightmare Fredbear and Fredbear don't have these coils, but the rest of them do. Why that's important is it confirms that Burntrap is not based on Nightmare Endo in terms of these hands, but it does confirm he has the other Nightmare Endo's hands, even if that's a little confusing. An interesting thing though is Burntrap has like these holes in his hand. This is also seen in the Mimic's skeleton design. Right here, these holes in the hand on his one hand that's similar to Burntrap's. That Steelwool either just didn't put in their original model or something. We don't have Scott's original models to compare, though we know there are some discrepancies and differences between those. In fact, we can actually see one with the hand where it looks a lot like in the Nightmare renders of Jacobani, that he has like these coils in his fingers, like where these cylinders are, that aren't actually modeled in. If they are there in the game at all, they're probably textures. I'm really bad at porting in textures, so I can't check that, but if we're looking at the core storytelling of each individual model, it's wild to think how much effort they put into like this corpse strung along this clear spring lock spring Bonnie torso and arms, slightly redesigned. It's some redesigns in terms of how these arm joints work, but basically, if you like, where's the damn marker? Oh, let's see. If you cut out like this chunk, maybe with some differences there, it's very close, you know. And then we skip over to this bastard, and it's like, okay, so we have the hand, we have the one hand that's the same, and that's it. Mostly, he has similar arm joints, but they aren't exactly the same. You can see these like hang off of little protrusions here. Whereas Burntraps are like directly rooted to his skeleton. Here, if I can try to draw what whatchamacallit. This is what the mimics should look like. It should be, and there should be open space here. And there should be a solidified base torso, and then he shouldn't have uh you should you can ooh, I pressed Control C too many times. Like I said, I don't know. I did 2 takes of this, so I don't know if I said this before or not, but Burntrap has like this actual like metal and like spine thing going on here that the Mimic, if I can pick our tab, very much does not have. He has this weird, like almost treadmill like rectangular spine. And then everything else is different from there. The only chunk of him that even remotely resembles Burntrap, like specifically Burntrap, that isn't just a generic nightmare trait, is like this bit of the face. People found that you could get like purple as the color for the eyes, but I'm like, that gets into such tricky, unused content territory. Like for all we know, some intern could have been like, "Oh, let's try this with the purple eyes," and then they're like, "No, don't do the purple eyes because people will think it's aft, and don't, and that's why they changed it to orange." That could be how this happened for all we know. So I really wouldn't trust game file stuff, especially when we have Cassie Princess, and then I think it's the switchport of the base game. The labels the aft ending as the true ending when that's very questionable now. Something I pointed out in my last one that I stand by that is missing from Burntrap's design entirely is the lightsaber connection here, where it's like you can see how these pistons are designed to extend in and out to go into costumes. And then you pull up this guy and he doesn't have those at all. There's not really any clear indication of those. Kind of here, like maybe this one part, but I don't know. It's like he's just missing so many things, and it's not just that he's different. FNAF redesigns happen all the time. You almost never see the same models the exact same way game to game. However, they typically are recognizably the same character. You look at Burntrap, or you look at Scraptrap, and you look at Springtrap, and you're like, "That's Springtrap, all right. That's him. That's he looks a little different, and maybe there's some lore reason he looks different, but he's recognizably still Springtrap." You look at Withered Foxy and Foxy, and you're like, "That's still Foxy, even if the toad is different." Going from like this bastard, or hold on, this bastard, and being like, "Yeah, we're going to remove all the rabbit iconography, remove all of the corpse, and change the entire skeleton's design, but keep the one hand," and you're like, "Yep, unarguably the same character." I don't see that. I don't buy that argument. Now, most of Burntrap and the Mimic similarities lie in presentation. They both have a somewhat similar form of movement and kind of like way they like kind of corral and like collapse and all that. Like they have the very similar arm movements and hand positions. And there's also the fact that the scooper ending kind of reenacts how the blob grabs Burntrap. But then you have stuff like, okay, so let's say that the Burntrap was never canon or is a hypothetical character or whatever. Like he's the Galactonite of the series, where he only exists in a hypothetical scenario that doesn't happen canonically. Okay, why is he so different? If this is a potential timeline mimic, why is he so astronomically unrecognizably different? Are you telling me that fucking the mimic like rips itself apart and just gets a new body? Which it maybe is possible, but the actual implications of that are lacking in general. it's also like, is that even really the Mimic if it does that at that point? And the other big things are a lot of the traces of Burntrap are still there, even in Ruin. When you go down in Ruin, you see the charging pod of Burntrap still there in the burner area. Which is like, what's the point of showing us that if your goal is to say this character is not canon anymore, or is retconned, or whatever your point is. Uh, it's like, this is what I'm talking about, where it's very frustrating that Mimic, this character who can shapeshift and do almost anything seemingly. And then on top of that, so you have this character who exists in both the books and the games, inarguably, but has discrepancies between those two appearances, which is probably what my next video is going to be about. And then you have, in that same game where he appears, like, inconsistencies between the designs. It's like, these arms aren't really the same at all. They're like, they're very simplified and like polygonal and basic. And you look at like what the rendered hands look like, it's like, that's not textures doing that there. These are just different arm designs fundamentally all the way through. He's missing the cloth thing on his head. How did I do that? And he's missing, like, this should be like that. It should kind of go down with the gauntlet there. The whole I'm in a room, a concrete room skit I did, it was slowly poking fun at how maddening the character comes, because it's like he's just been sitting in a room for who knows how long, and initially it was a genuine mistake I made where I forgot to draw a chunk, this little face chunk he has here going on, like this thing. I forgot to draw that in one of the images of him. And then when I was editing those images in, I noticed, oh shit, I forgot the green chunk. And I thought it'd be funny, what if in every drawing I do from here on out, I change something about his design that's subtle? To a point where it's very obvious by the end. Pointing out his design inconsistencies. Because this isn't like, literally only his head is mostly the same, and they still forgot a chunk of it. Like, this is a different leg entirely. Like, look at this shit. That's not even close. What the hell? How are we supposed to compare characters in earnest when shit like this happens? This is something that, if you're going to be the company working on Five Nights at Freddy's for the most part, if Steelwall are the ones defining their own story arc, or Scott's helping them or giving them instructions on what he wants the story to be, and they have to decide the plot themselves, you have to be able to, like, do these scenes in moments. You know? You have to be able to be precise in this way, and it's really coming across like they're not precise at all with this. Which makes it hard to debunk or bunk anything. I can't say for a fact that Burntrap's numerous design inconsistencies are proof, because they're already inconsistent with the same models. I can't fault arguments for that. And then on top of that, you have a character who's inconsistent between models in the base game. And then this character also has dozens of shape-shifting, like, little quirks to him. Not only can he, like, go into anything, but I swear they imply he can, like, grow or swap out for legs in some of the epilogues. Maybe I misread what they were trying to explain, but I swear it says it crawls out of the mushroom cots. Like, whatever. They say it some weird way where it's like crawls out of the mushroom costume. And I swear they say the mushroom costume has multiple legs, like the beyond just two. Which is just so weird, and like, it has so many damn things it can do that making any point about it is so frustrating. And that's kind of what my next video idea is. It's kind of be a culmination of what I've discovered so far. And looking at it, where I'm just like, what's the point? What is the point of this? Kind of what's the point of the Steel Wool arc in general, honestly. And I don't say that as someone. I don't hate the Steel Wool story arc at all, by the way. I want to make that clear. But it is frustrating, a series that is so built on theories and is so like, oh, theorize about it, and that Steel Wool is very clearly trying to get us to theorize about it. Otherwise, they would just give us the answers if they didn't want us to ask questions about things. Uh, why they wouldn't slow down to make sure there's consistency between things. Because goddamn, if your yellow text is slightly off, it's a different character definitively by some people's point of view. Like, that is just how you make one person bald, they have to have cancer. That's the FNAF community in general. And it's like, did you guys not learn you had to be a bit more explicit around security breach? That would really help us try to understand this story. Because the reason I did a video about Cassie's dad and Bonnie is that's the type of theorizing I love. That is not expressly explained to us. But there are so many little things that it's like, okay, so he's a technician. He likes Bonnie. He has this weird fixation on the character. We know technicians had something to do with Vanny and the Vanny mask and Mixus. And we know Mixus is a blue glowing rabbit. So what if he had something to do with there? And we know that there's several Phas wrench ports down in the Mix layer, which doesn't make sense if it was made before the Pizzaplex or anything like that. Those Phas wrench ports had to be installed after those areas were. After those areas already existed and were buried. Unless we're implying the Phas wrench is a technology we've always had, which really isn't made anywhere in the game. And it's like, okay. Oh, I'm in drama. That's why I'm in drama. That's why I wasn't focusing properly. And it goes both ways. It's so hard to make a claim about the Mimic when it can copy voices, can hack technology, can shapeshift, and can kind of do anything really relative to what most FNAF characters can. Who knows? I'm not even sure if the Mimic. You could argue its weakness is that it lacked supernatural properties, but it's not like William Afton ever had any supernatural properties that weren't living past dying. Like, it's not like he had super psychic powers or some shit. The only characters who like really do true supernatural stuff is like some scenes in the original FNAF 1. There's like posture and sign manipulation and hallucinations, and obviously Golden Freddy can teleport into your offices and stuff. And arguably the puppet, kind of depending on how you want to count things and look at things. But anyway, core findings. To recap that, because I'm rambling and I'm repeating myself a lot from the prior video. We have this damn ribcage thing constantly in these designs. That's in official used models, including Scott's and Steel Wool's, and in Burntraps, which further raises the questions of what the hell are we supposed to gather about these characters. Also, the Mimic is very frustrating from a theorizing standpoint, even though he's a fine antagonist in a vacuum. I think if he was a Charlie Bot situation where he was just an interesting idea the books toyed with and like played into how they wanted to tell their story, that would work great. I think he's just a really frustrating fit for the game universe. But I'll organize those points more in a dedicated video. I just wanted, since people kind of like the model dissection, I thought I'd go over that a bit more. Some more models I have. Hopefully I can get my hands on a Mimic model. So I can actually compare and look at that. Anyway, that's all. Bye.